Alright guys, so today I've got a quick review of the Spyderco Smock. This is the specific Jade G10 and M4 variant made by Blade HQ as an exclusive. This knife is a folding knife, and it's got a what's the blade length on this guy again? Yeah, 3.39 inch blade. It's a Wharncliffe blade. It's a Spyderco production model made in Taichung, Taiwan. Blade steel is M4, which means it's going to be very tough and hold an edge for a long time, but it's not going to be as corrosion resistant as some other options. This is also the satin blade, so it doesn't have a blade coating to protect it from rust. It's a compression lock, meaning that the lock bar engages, it's like cut out of the liner here, and engages behind the tang of the blade, and that's actuated uniquely by a button back here, which when pressed allows the knife to swing shut. As far as deployment, it's a flipper, meaning you pull a tab on the back, or you can also engage the thumb hole there to open it with your thumb, or there we go. It's hard to do on top of a desk under a camera, but you can also flick it out with your middle finger like that. Or if you remove, it's got two D10 switches, a little bit more. You might know what I'm talking about if you know more about knives, but if you remove one, you can actually flip it out by pressing the button. We'll get into a little bit of size comparisons really quick so you can get an idea of what size it is. First, we'll start out with some everyday objects that you might know if you're not familiar with knives. So we've got a dollar bill right here that's sitting right on top of a dollar bill. You can see how it is in comparison to that. I would consider it a pretty medium-sized knife. There's a quarter sitting right on top of it, so hopefully that gives you an idea of some more scale. Here it is next to a Pilot G2 pen and a Pentel RSVP. A little pen sandwich there. Lamy Safari, another pen. Cool. Here it is next to some other Spyderco options, the Para 3 and Paramilitary 2. We'll do a blades out comparison like that as well, so you can get an idea of that. Oh man, look at how dirty that guy is. Anyway, so more sharpened blade length than the Para 3, less than the PM2 by a little bit. As far as handle length, total grippable area, actually longer than the PM2, which is kind of impressive, and significantly longer than the Para 3, if you're counting, I guess, from here all the way to inside the choil. Comparable, I guess, if you're not counting choils, but Spyderco makes things complicated like that a little bit. Final size comparison, just because I've got it here, why not? The Civivi Baby Banter. As you can see, this is a pretty small knife, but I can still grip it, so in comparison to that, it's a larger knife. But anyway, blade shape, this guy is a Wharncliffe blade, or modified Wharncliffe, I suppose, since it's got a little bit of belly in there, and that just means that it like curves down to a pointy tip at the end without being like a clip point blade, which would be something like this where the end is clipped off. Typically a Wharncliffe blade is something more like this, or I don't know if this would be a sheep's foot. Sheep's foot, I guess I've heard, is supposed to just curve down. Wharncliffe angles down a little bit, so I think it's closer. This is closer to a Wharncliffe, but typically with one of those you'll have a straight, perfectly straight edge, and it'll come to a nice tip at the end. That's why this one's modified, because it does have a little bit of belly in there, but it's not your typical like leaf shape, like the one that I just showed you, the Baby Banter, or like leaf shape or drop point, I guess. Handle is made out of G10. This is translucent G10. How it comes, it's not dyed or anything, and it's got steel, stainless steel liners in there to provide some extra strength. So you've got a pretty nice and rigid handle. Already went over deployment type a little bit. Oh, price on these guys. I think I picked this up at around $170 to 190. Honestly, I don't remember. It was like it might have been like 180 because it was just a little bit more than the typical price of the carbon fiber and S30V, which is what this knife usually comes in. And now, since you can't get them, the drop on them was really crazy. I forgot to mention that, but these Spyderco does these things called sprint runs where it'll make a limited batch of a certain knife. Oh, also, sorry about that eczema on my hands, or they've just been really dried out from washing them a bunch. But anyway, I don't have a disease or something. They're just really dry. Yeah, so Spyderco does these really quick sprint runs where they'll make just a certain number of a knife in a batch in a certain like steel or handle combination. And lately on the more popular models, they've been just going crazy fast. And I bought this in the first like 30 seconds that these dropped, and I'd invested the money originally in a Lil Native, Lil Native, in a similar treatment, and then I'd flipped that one and made a little bit off of it, and decided to put the money I made, just the money that had been, I guess, in knives, in that knife particularly, I decided to put it into this knife. And I knew they were going to go really fast. So I knew exactly when they were dropping, so I picked one up really quickly. And I know some people weren't as lucky, so sorry about that. The site ended up crashing and everything, but yeah, let's see the classification. Oh, it's designed by Kevin Smock in a collaboration with Spyderco. He's the designer. Shallow carry pocket clip. It's like the standard spoon clip. I carried it while I was using it with this deep carry lunge clip, which I would highly recommend. Just works much better. It still only makes it where you'll have about that much of the knife sticking out past, even with the deep carry clip that makes it significantly deeper, more than a ½ inch, I'd say. Let's see. Okay, we're going to get into the positives first and what I think is good about the knife. One really cool feature about the knife is the flipper tab. It's pretty unique in that it doesn't stick out the back of the knife. Most traditional flipper tabs stick out the back and kind of provide what some people refer to as a pocket pecker, because they'll be bumping up against other objects in your pocket and that pointy bit. Let's see if I got an example here. Yeah. So something like the Kershaw leak here, you'll just have this little pocket pecker thing, and it's kind of annoying. It works pretty well to flip out a blade, but this does too, actually. And it doesn't take up any extra room, so you can get a really nice thin knife in your pocket, which is just nice because you'll be sliding your hand past that to grab other objects in your pocket. And yeah, nice. One of the other standout features of this is that the closing action on it, you get the same type of lock in like your Para 3 here, where it's a compression lock, so you can push that and it closes without you having to have your fingers in the way of the blade. As you can see, no fingers in the way, and you can close it more safely and quickly and everything. It's just a great setup. But this even builds upon that, making it even easier, where you just push a button and it closes, and that's awesome. That is one of the features, that the combination of the strength of this lock and the button closing is something that only exists on this knife right now, to my knowledge. There's some things similar like the ProTech Malibu or the Civivi Elementum button lock, but those other button locks aren't going to have the same lock strength because they're not using a full-on liner type lock or compression lock. Compression lock being even stronger than a liner lock, I guess. So yeah. Anyway, great lock type and great closing action. Some other positives, carry profile I already mentioned is pretty narrow. Also, I forgot to say it's hollow grind. So even though the grind starts down low on the blade, it is very slicey. It was sharpened to like something crazy. It was like between 15 and 16 degrees when I went to sharpen it. I was trying to match the factory edge on there. Super slicey. Oh my gosh. I mean, when you put a nice edge on this, it will just run through anything. It is a little bit on the thicker side because it's like the grind doesn't go all the way up, but very nice and slicey. Anyway, we were saying carry profile nice and thin. I do like the blade shape a lot because it's nice for draw cuts where you can just pull through something. I do a lot of breaking down boxes at work and cutting cardboard. I'm trying to think of other cutting tasks that I do. Sometimes I'll randomly need to cut a piece of fruit at home, or I don't know, cut through a piece of rope or whatever. Good for all those cutting tasks. And it's kind of a nice compromise to have that nice pointy tip with the kind of reverse tanto on there, and yeah, just be able to draw cut through things. Some other positives, it just looks nice with the Jade G10. I think this specific variant looks nice. My alarm for my laundry is going off. Just 1 second. Yeah, I think it brings a more classy look to have the Jade G10 compared to the carbon fiber, in my opinion, which just looks kind of tactical. But yeah, let's get into the critiques a little bit and issues that I had with it. So one of the biggest annoyances for me is that the opening hole right here, the Spidey hole, is partially covered up by the liner there, you can see. And that compared to something like your Paramilitary 2, where it's completely, you can see the hole is completely free from the handle. And in my experience, some people might disagree, but in my experience, that allows you to get your thumb in there where you can have your thumb fully purchased on the hole before you apply any force to flip it open. So then I just find you can apply the right amount of force against the detent to fling it open much better. I just think that works really well on the as I mess up the deployment on the Para 3 or the PM2. Just much more consistent flips with either of those in deployments. I find myself failing deployments much less frequently on those compared to this, where you can get the purchase in there to do it, but I just don't find that as accessible, because a lot of times you'll be kind of digging your thumb in, and to get really good purchase on there where your thumb is all the way on all sides of the hole, you kind of have to pull it away from the handle, so then you're really just throwing it around. I just don't find it to work as well. The jimping on here is kind of meh compared to something like your PM2, where the jimping, it's like just the right amount of, it's not going to tear up your finger, but it is nice and grippy and just small and chamfered just enough. Oh, so good. And this is not bad. I've definitely had worse jimping, but I don't know. It's just kind of meh. It looks kind of odd. I do like the way it looks open. I think it's kind of cool. But with the holes in it and just the shape of the blade, it has some odd looks that might be intimidating to some people, and just generally I don't think it looks that classy necessarily. I kind of flip-flop on it every time that I hold it. Ergonomics, that's one of the big things for me that makes this knife kind of annoying and difficult to work with. The ergonomics aren't bad, but they just aren't great. There's about 3 ways you can hold it. You can hold it with your pointer finger in this sort of cutout, which puts your purchase pretty far back on the blade and gives you less control. Works totally fine, and you can still get 4 fingers on there nicely. But yeah, it's okay. You can shift up a little bit more where your pointer finger's on this flat part, your middle finger sits in that cutout, and then your ring finger and pinky sit in this sort of area. And that works pretty well too. That might be my favorite grip with it. Or you can slide up a little bit more and actually, I'd probably keep these fingers here too and just slide my pointer finger up into the choil. But I do find that to be very close to the sharpened blade and kind of scares me if I were like pushing into something that I might catch my finger on the sharp part of the blade there. Yeah, but I think the issue for me is like all of those are good handle positions, but none of them are perfect. What I do appreciate about this is that the hole is not huge. So compared to something like your Para 3, when you hold it, your thumb doesn't want to sit on top of the thumb hole area. I mean, I know it's supposed to sit behind the thumb ramp to like push into stuff, but like sometimes I want to like do a draw cut and it doesn't work great to have that in the way. And this doesn't have that issue as much. It still's got a little like hump there. Anyway, yeah, so the ergonomics are okay, but I think they could be better. It's got a very shallow carry clip, as I mentioned before, that I would consider to be a negative, and I would rework this to where it's sitting up close to the edge, like on the PM2. So if you do decide to do a deep carry, then it can be where none of the knife shows, and you could still do a shallow carry. It can still come with a shallow carry clip. I don't have any issue with that. But I think even with a shallow carry clip, I think it could move up and just work better. Other critiques, it has a pretty weak detent. It's got 2 detent balls, and I've carried it with both configurations. I've taken out the detent, the secondary one, and it gets amazing action, I will say, when you take out the second detent ball. I mean, it's drop shut right now, but it just, I mean, no resistance whatsoever once you take out the second detent ball, because there's nothing holding the blade. It's just on a pivot. It's like a freaking fidget spinner. Anyway, I just find that like if you if you just pull the flipper tab without really thinking about it, I find it to be not easy to fail, but like you can definitely just kind of, I don't know. I think it could be significantly stronger and be a better knife. That might just be the one that I got, but that's something that I think could be improved. All right, so as kind of wrapping it up, I'm going to talk about what I think could be done to this knife to make it better and make it how I think would be perfect. So what I would do, and bear with me here because it's a lot and you might disagree, which is totally fine, but I would actually get rid of the Spidey hole, and that I think would provide some interesting ergonomics where your thumb could get a little bit more low and comfortable on the blade. If it could be like kind of carved out down a little more, you'd still have as much strength because you'd be able to like build this up a little more. But I would get rid of the Spidey hole because it's already covered up a little bit by the handle, and the preferred method of deployment for me is that flipper anyway. It's such a good design because it works really well to deploy and it doesn't get in the way of things. So why not just use that? I'm all for having multiple methods of deployment if it works, but I just don't think this Spidey hole works that well. So I just get rid of it. And then for handle ergonomics, I would just get rid of the speed holes because I don't know. I don't think they add really anything to it. And I might even build out this handle a little bit more because your blade is already taking up that room in your pocket, so it's not really going to do that much. You could mill out more of the steel liner where you're not adding any weight, and I think that would just provide more grip to make the handle more ergonomic, and you'd have more handle positions that would work better. Ideally, you'd be able to bring the edge all the way back here and just get rid of the forward finger choil, but I know that's not possible with the current setup with the button compression lock. I do think there's a way that you could do that, where if you had the button actuate the same way, but it was like attached with a little bridge kind of over the back to the other side, then I think you could push the button like from this side where it's not getting in the way of the blade, and I think you could actually have a full knife blade. I'm still trying to figure out how to draw that to where it makes sense. But I think there's a way you could do that. It would just need to be developed more, so that's what I would do as well. And then I would obviously fix the pocket clip. And other things I would fix on it. Oh yeah, and I would just give it better jimping. I'd give it jimping like on the PM2 back of the thumb ramp. I would just do that like all the way down here. Just that whole surface, and then you'd have plenty of area to grip. I might do it in both directions, so you can pull or you can push, and you get nice grip there. I would even, heck, I would do it all the way across here. Why not? Just make it less slippery, and a better tool. It's not uncomfortable making jimping like that. So yeah, I just do it everywhere, because why not? It's already got a weird look to it, so I don't think that would do anything negative. I'd also contour the handles, but that's just like, I don't know, most Spydercos could use that. So yeah, that's what I would change. Oh, and I would take the grind higher. You'd be able to do that if you got rid of the Spidey hole. Yeah, so I'd take the grind a little bit higher, and I might even just make it like a true Warney, and then you just have this massive true Warney blade. Anyway, there's a lot of things that I would change about it, I guess, which is why I'm probably going to get rid of this guy. I do love it. Despite its weirdness and flaws, I love this knife. It's great to carry, because you can deploy it and close it and put it away so fast. But it just got enough issues for me that I think I want to take the money that you can get for it now and just try out some other things. I might regret that in the future, but honestly, like, whatever. Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, the Spyderco Smock M4 Jade G10 Blade HQ exclusive variant.